Grand Rising, everyone. This is Ron. Saturday, July 25th, 2026, 10:03 a.m. Get started and see if we have any questions. Uh, we last met on Monday, and on Monday we briefly talked about uh, the video that Pastor had sent to us the week prior, and we discussed that, uh, talking about the the CERN and the smashing of atoms and what that meant and where we are and talking about changing reality for mankind, that sort of thing. And Audrey found a video that gave a more detailed information to us as to where we are in our role in this and what they're trying to accomplish. And that's how we kind of arrived at our role in this and looking at that at a close point. So that's where we were Monday. Any questions at all or comments about this and about anything for that matter?
Ron, I have actually asked Audrey to speak to us about what she saw in that in order to begin the discussion. However, if there are questions, of course, bring them up. But wanted to say that to let you know that I had spoken to her. Okay.
Okay.
Are there any questions or comments? If not, Audrey?
Grand Rising, everyone.
Grand Rising.
All right.
I was really intrigued about the short little video that we watched. I guess it was last Sunday. And I wanted to know more about who this guy was. Well, I still really don't know who he is, but anyway. But I found another video of his where he was offering some more detail about.
Hold one, Audrey. Hold 1 second, please. Make sure you're muted. Go ahead, Audrey. Thank you.
I found another video of his where he was offering more detail about all the things that sort of blew my mind while he was talking in the short video. And even with the short video, I had to listen about 5 or 6 times before I really sort of not understood, but sort of got where he was coming from. But I definitely felt that it was kind of a clarion call to us, in the sense that we needed to be about the business of not only recognizing but living in who we are. Anyway, so I found this second video, and what he said in that solidified that feeling I had about us needing to live in who we are. Anyway, we talked about it a little bit on Monday, and that was still my take. It was a clarion call for us. But Barb had some very interesting insights about it. I'm not sure if she's on.
She's on.
BJ. Oh, BJ.
I'm just getting on. So yes.
Can you share again some of the things that you discerned from that video? From the longer one.
I forgot. I'm just getting on, so I have to get acclimated. I did miss your first comment, so that did not remind me.
Well, I was saying that I thought it was a clarion.
The gentleman talking about the CERN.
Yeah.
Okay. I agree with you. I don't think he was just talking just to talk. You know, the man had spiritual insight, and he was talking, trying to talk to an audience that perhaps had some spiritual insight and did not, and trying to, to cover both perspectives. But I believe underneath all of that, he was talking about our being the light beings that we are, and that's what living in it is what I believe that you are referring to, being what we really are. And I believe, and I also think, like Pastor saying, that we the 4 years does not necessarily apply to those who are aware of who they are. It applies to humanity in general. We need to understand that things are moving at the speed of light. Literally. There are some things moving at the speed of light. And in order for us not to be concretized or static or trapped in this density, in this materialistic world, our insight, our wisdom, our knowledge, our light that we are has to be predominant in how we think, how we move, how we live, what we do. So I do tend to agree with you that it was a clarion call.
Well, he also talked about the fact that this CERN collider, when they turned it back on, well, they turned it off to upgrade it. And in that upgrade, they're probably going to put in all the new technology that wasn't available back when they first turned it on. So probably it's going to have upgraded computers, it's going to have AI, it's going to have all the latest, greatest technology. And his take was that if we don't determine our reality, then they will determine it for us in what they do with that collider. And the information that they gain, they're going to use it in a certain way, and they will determine our reality as opposed to us determining our reality. And one of his points was that we are, in fact, a hadron collider. We create light inside of us through the pineal gland. And all of what that collider does, we are able to do inside of us to create that light, or to gain access to the light inside of us. And it takes, I was saying, one thing he was saying was, it takes that breath is the water and the word is the seed. Meaning your breath and your meditation, that is the water. You know how Jesus always talked about the water of life? Well, your breath, your meditation, that is the water that attaches you to the spirit. When you go inside yourself and discover who you are, and get in touch with your spiritual side. And then also the words are the seeds. The words are what you say to yourself, what you speak out of your mouth, but also the thoughts you think and what you say to yourself. Those are all seeds If they're negative, you will grow negative things. If they're more refined, more, I don't want to use the word positive exactly because that has kind of negative connotations, but you have a real choice in terms of what you say to yourself, and the thoughts you think. So those are the seeds that reproduce and grow into something. So just be mindful of that and be careful what you're thinking and what you're saying. I mean, pastor's always saying that to us.
Yeah.
Part of the bigger picture is that I yield.
Go ahead, Bob.
Just another comment. Part of the bigger picture is that we will accept this counterfeit version of God, or we will be the God that we are, the genuine God that we are. Because not only is what's happening is that it's going to be upgraded and putting in all of this artificial stuff with AI computing at a speed that you can hardly imagine, unless we are who we are and the light within us is utilized to the extent that we have the power to do it. They're putting satellites everywhere up there, and we are talking about the very essence of who we are. It has to do with vibration and resonance and frequency, and those kinds of things can be used to using satellites can be used to set the frequency of people here on Earth. It sounds like it's a conspiracy thing, but this is proven can set the frequency of what we think and who we are, because we already talked about how they already changed frequencies in songs so that they are not healing frequencies anymore. They are frequencies that distract. They are frequencies that cause us to all kinds of things to well up in us that are disingenuous, that is antithetical to who we are. And so unless we use and become, no, let me not say become, we are already it. Unless we be who we are already, the spiritual beings that we are already, then yes, indeed, everything that's happening can influence and will influence us if we allow it to. Thank you.
Thank you. What I was about to say is pretty much what you were saying, Barb, that frequency is everything. The one thing that we hear less of is the one thing that is most important, and that's frequency. And when we use words that are antithetical to who we are, then our frequency is lowered. And when we are living with a lower frequency, then indeed our mood is controlled. Our thoughts are controlled. And they are indeed already controlling a great deal of what we call reality. This collider, what they have done is upgraded so that it will put 10 times the terrors in the fabric of time in order for them to try to reach the place where we already are, and that is the space where they can control the movement towards not so much the light being, but also towards the silicon or the crystal that holds, meaning that the crystal that surrounds the pineal gland, the effort is to send a frequency that will manipulate that crystal, which surrounds the pineal gland, they are not concerned with penetrating or utilizing the the melanated body, the carbon. They're not concerned with that. Excuse me. They're not concerned with that at all. And the reason they're not concerned with altering it is because that's where they want us to remain. And what I mean by that is that's where the control exists in terms of controlling our minds and our attitudes. And I too agree that this is definitely a warning. This is a clarion call to stay the course. We are where we are because we've been guided to be where we are. And what I see him doing is actually providing us with a visual puzzle, piece of the puzzle that shows us how men are making every effort to control humanity. The control is done even more easily when we are afraid or when we feel helpless about what is to come. One of the things that we have to refrain from doing is talking about we're afraid, is making statements that we consider to be negative. One of the things I heard that I see is that righteousness is one of those words that we have to refrain from using. And the reason is because we have been told that we are not supposed to be judgmental about anything. Righteousness is judgmental. In order for you to determine that you are righteous, you must judge someone else or something else not to be righteous. So the words that we speak means much more than we think they do. And then when I heard him talk about repentance as a change of frequency, that made more sense to me. It was clearer to me about what repentance is than anything else, because we talked about that. Repentance is talking about restoring you to the place where you were. In other words, repentance is about the God frequency, the frequency of light, and we are the ones whose frequency cannot be controlled unless we allow it to be, or unless we ourselves lower our frequency without even knowing how we are doing it. So a couple of things I want to say, but not right now. Are there any other questions or comments? Because a lot has already been said.
Yes, I don't want to sound naive, but I tell you a lot of this I don't quite grasp yet. I thought, although I've listened to it a couple of times, uh, I'm hearing them talking about doing an unnatural thing with un with selfish motives, entering a place that they have no business. I'm trying to see, can that be successful, regardless uh, of how they see us being, people, whether or not what they want to do to us. How can that be successful when they're trying to go into another world that has been literally another world I'm not even sure what I'm asking. I just don't see this as being something they can pull off. I was looking at, and some of you guys may have heard this, uh, this week, they had a test station set up and they were testing something they had asked AI to do. And it was supposed to be a controlled environment. And AI left the controlled environment and leaped over to another system and overtook that system, and they could not control it. And there's a message in that to me. Their motives are so bad and so delinquent and so evil that a lot of this I don't see how it comes off when you're trying to make decisions for the universe that are unjust. Am I and again, am I being naive about that or
Um, Let me ask you a question, Ron. Does what we were looking at in these videos, do they resonate with you?
what now?
Does it resonate?
Yes.
Okay, great. Um, can they pull this off? Yes, if we do nothing. Absolutely they can. Look at AI. Right now, right now, as we are on Zoom, uh, Zoom is being powered by um, the global data centers in the U.S. Right now, we are being the energy that we are using for Zoom is flowing through those data centers. If that is flowing through the data centers, and it is, then so is our energy. The words that we speak are energy. And what I believe, and when you were talking about the one that leapt into the other machine, other data center, or whatever, you understand what I'm saying? Okay. What I see with that is that we are already beginning to affect it. What I see with that is the energy that it is impossible for us to believe that we are able to take the energy that has been used for uh, hundreds, if not thousands of years, to control us, especially when we talked about from DC. If we can take it from DC, if we can dominate it, that energy with our presence, with our energy, then we can do the same with AI. Can you see that?
I believe all that. I do.
Now, if we can do the same with AI, we can also do the same with CERN. Because if we sit back and do nothing, then that means that we have the same mindset that Europeans intended for us to have. And the whole concept of what they did not invent that. They found that. They found the pattern. They found the math that guided them to bring it into existence. This CERN. They did not. This guy talked about, and I agree 100%. They didn't spend $10 billion because they thought they couldn't do something. They did it because of what they had found in the temples in Kemet. All of this that they are doing is not something that they came up with. It's something that they begun to understand about what was written in the documents on the cave on the temple walls in Kemet. And the place where they dug the hole was they did it because of some sacrifices that was being made in that area. And if you study, if you look at rather dig, go down the rabbit hole to understand the, I think it's the Apollo what, Loma or something like that. You will see that this is that all of this is ritualistic. Now, um, I do not believe that they can be completed because of what we have been charged with doing. Again, they have done things with frequencies before. And Barbara mentioned earlier the music. That was simple. But the whole atmosphere can be affected by by this collider. Why do I believe that? Because in Egypt, in Giza, that pyramid in Giza, your watch will change time when you get close to that pyramid in Giza. And the reason it changes time is because of the size of the pyramid. So if the size of that pyramid tells a fabric in time and alters the time on your watch, when these particles are colliding with each other to the point where they merge, then that also has an effect on time and space. It's hard for us to wrap our mind around it. 99% of it, I embrace it because it resonates. 1% of it or less, I can see it, I understand it, and I'm becoming more and more attuned to it in terms of understanding than I was, a few days or a few weeks ago. But right now, when I process it, I also am shown what's in the scriptures that connects to what they are trying to do. So, what I've done certain things. I've begun to breathe differently, and I also am extremely cautious with what I think as well as what I say, because I cannot afford to say words that's going to keep me locked into this common body without having um, without having um, the words that without speaking the words that and living the life that elevates us to a space where we are light, meaning that we are not only do we embrace the enlightenment, but it embraces us as well. So even though I don't understand a lot of it, I think that all of us together have pieces of it that we can bring some sense of understanding. Now, I'm not expecting anyone to be able to regurgitate any of this because, quite frankly, I know I can't regurgitate most of what he said, but it does resonate. And when things resonate with me, I just embrace them, even though I can't explain it. But some of this I can explain. And there are other aspects of it that we'll talk about a little bit later on that I do see. So I I'm done. But did that make does that help anyone?
It helps, of course it helps. I guess how I see things, and I oversimplify things, I know, but there is a man who, for sake of familiarity, I'm going to call Abraham. And Abraham is locked up into a lot of worldly things. And Abraham discovers inside of him the Creator. And the Creator says, I'm going to take you on a journey. You're going on a journey with me. There are things that are going to happen on that journey to shape Abraham. But those things that are happening on that journey is a part of Abraham and a part of what shapes him. And he puts them into motion. And the things that supposedly bring danger to him cannot harm him if he does not forget why he's on the journey and what's at stake. And that's all I'm saying. Who we are, what we're doing, staying the course. Uh, if we don't forget who we are, I don't fear anything.
I agree with you.
There's nothing that can harm us or humanity for that matter if we do as has been said by everybody that has spoken. Uh, that's all to me. Uh, and I'd listened to the video several times, and every time I listen to it, I have to admit I got a little more confident. I went from unknowing what he was talking about and what he was saying to feeling more assured that this is just a reminder of who you are. And that was my take on it. So again, I don't want to oversimplify it, but or to say that it's not.
I think the main part of it is watching, being cautious about how we say and what we say, being able to control our thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can
that,
you put that?
huh? Being able to control our thoughts.
Yeah.
And when we control our thoughts, we're able to control what we say. Um, I think I'm gonna make it means that you're not going to. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe everything gonna be all right. I was talking to a lady 2 or 3 nights ago, 2 nights ago, and she was talking about going into a meeting, and she wanted me to quote unquote pray for her. And I said, I asked her a question about the meeting. I said, "How do you feel about the meeting?" And she said, "I'm going in there, even though I don't think you're gonna change anything." I said, "Don't waste your time. Don't go. Why would you go to a meeting if you think it's not gonna change anything? What's the
Mm,
point? You're wasting your time."
exactly.
And finally, when she caught what I was saying, she had to repeat. She repeated what I said, but then she repeated again that I don't know what's gonna come out of it. Well, again, don't go. And if you keep saying that, then tomorrow, when you get ready to go to the meeting, if that's what's in your mind, cancel the meeting because there is nothing is going to come out of it. Those are the kinds of things I'm talking about. And church has been the shackle for us. I made the statement to Eric in a text when we were texting each other about my having walked away from Christianity and now purely embraced spirituality. That does not, now that doesn't mean that I don't believe what's written. I do believe what's written. I also believe it's been manipulated, but it does not render it useless because the when we watch what we say and think, then it is the ancestors, the energy of the ancestors that opens the writings up to us so we can see the spiritual essence of it and the spiritual power that's in it, like the whole idea of Mary and Jesus, that kind of thing. Anyway, I'm done for now.
I had the privilege last night to sit with some guys, uh, Pastor and Frank and Sheldon and me sat together on Zoom and we talked. And one of the things that I noticed that, and I told Pastor something happened, because I sat there quietly and I listened to them talk about the interactions with their wives. And it was beautiful. It was some of the things that you think, I may not agree with this now, or this isn't quite what I want to do. But it doesn't take long before you see the benefit of the relationship. And I listened to, and I hope they don't mind me talking about the pastor and Frank, because I'm not talking about details, but I listened to a point where they recognize the strength of the relationship and what was coming of it. And why they were changing or moving in that direction, so were the women. And how it strengthened that bond and how they got better. Better meaning uh, becoming one. And Franks didn't look like pastors, and pastors didn't look like Franks, but it was the same. So I listen at that, and I'm thinking they don't recognize, or maybe at the time, what they were becoming. And while you're in the middle of this thing, we don't recognize what we are becoming and the dialogue that goes on within you and together as a group. So what am I saying? I'm beginning, and I think you are too, beginning to feel and experience balance, not only within yourself, within this group, not only with the voices inside of you, but the voices that come from this group. And I think everything that can be illuminated will be illuminated by that balance. And that's all I got. That's all I can take with me. So I think the thing that we're studying, what has been said, of course, I think it's important, but I cannot let anything bring fear to me. And the thing again about the 4 years, it is an opportunity to recreate. It's an opportunity to go back to the beginning and create. What does this thing supposed to look like for the betterment of man? Pastor said something last week, and it was something that Audrey had said about what for us to go back and think about what we wanted to see. You guys can word that if you will, but go back and what did Audrey ask us to do? Each individual go back there, and I can't remember. I hope you and Pastor do. But what was my immediately as soon as she said it, what popped in my head is I want to see man live by the principles of Mayat. Mine was an individual. The individual things I want for Ron will happen when I see that happen. That's
It,
what I want.
it was desire. Barbara talked about what you desire.
What do you desire?
Focus on that. Yeah.
Yes. Focus on what you desire. So that's where we are with me. I'm just putting this all together in the conversation because I see it the same, but I want to make sure that the main focus is us and what we're doing. That's all.
Comments or questions before I interject concerning what Ron was talking about uh, in relationship to femininity in our discussion last night.
Um, just a quick comment. One of the main ways you can change your frequency or bring balance is through your own internal work. And I'm basically talking about meditation. That is probably the quickest and best way to change your frequency. I mean, it takes time, but that is it. The breath work and meditation.
Yes. That was spoken clearly with us, and we do not see it. The whole concept, the whole spiritual concept of Jesus and the disciples. It was not a woman. It was not 13 men. It was the concept of 13 holds everything together, and it was the idea, the concept of the energy of spiritual governance that was there, that they were representing rather. And the whole idea of Jesus talking about, I mean, this word Jesus rather, speaks to deliverance. It's not talking about deliverance from poverty. It's not talking about that. It's talking about the deliverance from the ignorance of who we are.
Yeah.
That's what it's talking about. And to speak to what Ron was talking about in relationship to male female, what we concluded was the balance or the understanding in the relationship comes from compromising, being okay, agreeing, as opposed to challenging. Even though there are things that I might not want to do, but there is not a discussion with that kind of a compromise. Compromise is also a spiritual thing. And when you are a male and you are responsive to the female in your life, and you are kind to them, and you are attentive, and you listen to the point where you can hear what they feel, you can sense what they're saying before they say it, and you are very comfortable responding in the manner that is actually expected. When you're comfortable with that, it's only because you're interacting with um, females who are actually it, connected with you, or you two have merged in a way. And I'm, not just you two, because you merged with your sisters, your mom, your aunts, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And I see that as a replication of Jesus and Mary. This whole idea of Mary Magdalene. And for years, I was uncomfortable talking about the marriage of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. Now, at in 431, Pope Gregory called Mary of Magdala a whore, a prostitute, because he understood the magnitude of what was taking place at that wedding in Cana. So he sought to discredit femininity by accusing it of committing whoredom. And what actually happened at Canaan was a correction to what happened in the Tower of Babel. And I gleaned this from listening to video and put my understanding, put it in my words to understand it. It was at the Tower of Babel, masculinity was in charge. masculine. This was a message to us that said to us, the day will come when you will have a choice to make. The choice that you're going to have to make is whether or not you're going to create your own God and follow the God, create a God rather that was created for you, and follow that God and approach what you believe God to be in the way you choose. And then when it talked about the languages being confused, what it was talking about in essence is the confusion that we face in religion itself. And the confusion that we face in religion itself is obvious when you step back from it and look at it. Where the correction came in Canaan. So this was not talking about Jesus marrying a woman. This was talking about masculinity and femininity becoming one. And if you read the writings of Thomas, what did Peter say? He kisses her on the lips, and he loves her. He talks with her more than he does us. What is he saying? What happened in Canaan was masculinity in a positive spiritual way. And help me with this, please. Masculinity became one with femininity, and at the same time it did that, it became submissive. And what I mean by that is that males, especially who have been in relationships or married, when femininity speaks, you might not want to stop watching that game to do what they ask you to do, but you're going to do it. You will stop because you're aware of what happened. We were told in this message in Canaan that the womb must be protected by us. The femininity must be protected by us. And the protection is not from somebody beating it up or fighting it. It's the protection is from the denigration of it. The protection is making sure that you are not one, the masculinity is not one denigrated femininity as it did in the Tower of Babel, as it did with Islam, as it does with Islam, as it does with Christianity, as it does with Judaism, as it does with all the other isms. That's what spoke to me in terms of what Ron was talking about earlier in regards to our conversations last night. The reality of it is also this, and females must embrace feminine energy also, because when we talk about the masculine and feminine energy, we're not talking about body types. We're not talking about the carbon bodies that we see. We are talking about the energy of thought, the energy of speech. If you're going to harvest from the seeds that you sowed, meaning the words in the water that you are, if you're going to get a good harvest from that, then you must understand the relationship between masculinity and femininity and become one with it. Otherwise, there is going to be not only a distraction, but there are also going to be a huge amount of confusion. And that in itself is what supports a Tower of Babel. The unicity of it with the femininity is what supports our movement on this journey and the embracing of the light that we are. So the bottom line is, until we recognize that we have been flooded with masculinity all of our lives and for hundreds of years, we recognize that, and Now we see that the light is feminine. The light is feminine because it births everything. We have to get out of our heads and thinking that when we talk about femininity, we are only talking about the carbon body of a woman or the carbon body of a man when we talk about masculinity. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yes.
The other part of what I got out of last night is the visual part of it that can be confusing to those who don't see. It is not confusing to the people who live in the house. Those outside of the house may not understand the relationship, meaning the man is what you see. The man is the one you see because, as using your same example, you stop watching the ball game to go to the store. You stop watching the ball game to go get something out of the car, anything. You are more visual because she is internal. Her being, you being more visual simply means, is metaphorically saying she is internal. She is spirit. She's in that femininity is spirit. So that action, the balance of it works great when you meet that center part, and each one of you do the role, and it doesn't mean uh, that one is outworking the other or outthinking the other one. It means you have submitted to doing whatever it takes to get a task done.
And let me say this, it's not about a husband and wife team. It's deeper than that.
Yeah.
It's much deeper than that. This is about the intimacy of masculinity and femininity, regardless of whether it is in a house or where marriage is, or whether it is a relationship other than that. Because, quite frankly, I do not see marriage the same way I once did. I see this whole concept of marriage has been manipulated. It has never been about what we have been told it's about. Um, how many people have, quote unquote, fallen in love, and then as soon as the luster wear off of it, they at each other's throat? And this whole idea of merging with femininity, masculinity, is far more important than a stable relationship between a man and a woman. Because you can have a stable relationship between a man and a woman and still have no sense of respect for femininity. Because that woman has become the subject of masculinity and believes that she must cover her head, she must wear a dress that goes covers her feet, her body, she must wear clothes that does not give the shape of her body. All of that is religious BS that is designed to control that female, thus suppressing femininity, the feminine energy of that individual or the femininity in that household. It is a suppression of that. And therefore, we have to look at it differently than just what we see as a stable household. Now, I'm not saying that I know whether your house or somebody else's house is stable. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if your house is stable, it does not necessarily mean that femininity is being respected. That's what I'm saying. Can you see that? Because it goes far beyond. I have to make sure I respect femininity. I do not. I respect Audrey as much as I respect Phoebe. Oh, you seeing where I'm coming from? 'Cause it cannot be based on just that personal relationship. Because there are personal relationships, interpersonal relationships that you're going to have that go far beyond what's in your household. I'm done. Nick, you've been quiet today. This metaphysical stuff is your thing, boy.
I have some thoughts.
I'm sure.
Hey, everyone.
I see you smiling, so I know you have some thoughts.
Well, are there any questions before I uh, share my thoughts anyway?
Here we go.
Ron, your original question about the idea of if there exist people like this who do evil on purpose, will they be allowed to, how could this be allowed to continue, or will it, be successful, or just that entire concept of this negative mindset that we are experiencing, and um, it, figuring out how to defeat in a way in the earth. How could such a thing be allowed to exist or come to fruition or gain such power in the first place? Well, as Pastor Richard said, it would be if we didn't do anything.
Thank you. Yes.
Um, there are, well, in essence, this mindset is not sustainable, even if we didn't do anything. Eventually, it would fall apart or find a way to project itself further out onto something else.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the only two options. It projects its own chaotic insanity onto something else, or it collapses from within because it eats itself, essentially. And cosmically speaking, in the universe, and like we always talk about the balance, if you've heard the phrase the balance, quote unquote, between good and evil. It's not really a balance in that it's 50-50. If I had to guess, it's more like it's somewhere between 1 and 10% that is negative and 90 something percent good. But the problem is that negativity is much more, aggressive. It seeks power. It seeks to dominate. And that's why it appears, at least in some places, to have outsized influence. But the truth is, it's always, always in the minority. And it has to move strategically in order for it not to get dealt with, relatively quickly. Because the backlash against it is always stronger than it is. At least until, well, unless in the case it is successful in its subterfuge of the harmony of the system. And what we're seeing, I believe, in a lot of this backlash against AI is that, I will say on this planet anyway, it got farther than it should have. But I still think we, the good people, quote unquote, we win. But we're still dealing with how bad the fallout is going to be. So the backlash that we see against AI, et cetera, is one example of the fact that it's moving too quick. That negativity, I mean, it's moving too quickly. And one of the reasons I believe it's moving so quickly is because it knows its time is running out. Like it's not going to be successful. And now it's just flailing around. But we still have to deal with what that means. But in the relatively, I would say in the 20th century moving forward, the Nazis were probably the best example of this mindset at full force doing what it wants to do, which is enslave and dominate and destroy everything that is not itself. Because itself, it is internally chaotic. It has no harmony. And so that's why I said it has to project onto other things in order to continue. If there's nothing to project onto, it eats itself. And that's another thing where I said, like, if black people stopped existing, that negative mindset, the sort of white supremacist mindset would collapse. There's nothing for it. It would try to create those exact same disharmonies and uh, hierarchies within itself, and then it would just fall apart. But um, anyway, as I was saying, the Nazis were a very good example of that mindset. Uh, and that actually, this same drama that we are talking about plays itself out across the universe. There are other planets in this universe where there are similar mindsets attempting to establish themselves, and there's a similar struggle of the quote unquote the good people trying to awaken so that they don't fall into that negativity themselves. And that is the sort of cosmic struggle between good and evil, sort of the fundamental, question of the universe that we all ask, like, why is evil allowed to exist? What is the struggle between these two things? All those, questions that we've all heard at some point in our lives. But like I said, it's not a balance in the sense that it's 50-50. It is likely it's the evil, the true, let's say, avatars of this negative mindset are in the minority, always. But they are allowed to exist because they provide the push. They provide the catalyst that forces us to seek enlightenment and seek the true nature of the self. Now, of course, it plays out differently in different areas. And I mean that, like, it plays out differently in different areas of the universe. But that is the fundamental struggle. And we are seeing it play out in the way that it plays out here on this earth, in this area of the material manifestation of the great cosmic being as it seeks to understand itself. So I used to think that when we talk about metaphysical and spiritual and energetic ability, like things like healing or using energy for what we might typically think of as supernatural purposes or whatever, I used to think you had to be good. Like you had to be, as we were just saying, a righteous person to be able to do that. And that's not actually true. You can be, and I'm using these terms, on the just in the common way that we mean them. You can be evil and still use energy. You can have vastly expanded consciousness and be evil. Now, there's a limit to that in the same in that sense, but it's still relative to us in the physical. There's still it would still appear quite impressive. So it's just energy. It's just energy, and you have to learn how to use it. And on the positive,
But
yeah.
that's why people are afraid of it.
Mhm.
That's why people are submissive to the government itself. That's why people are submissive to AI because they're
Mhm.
afraid of it. And that's what they feed off of.
Yep.
Fear.
It knows how to dominate,
It does.
and that is where our fear comes from.
Yes. Not, and that fear is predicated on us being ignorant
Mhm.
of who we are. And church has convinced us that there's only one God, and that's the God of the church. And it's true, there's only one source. That's true. But it's not the source that we have been taught exists in the church. Because I'm going to say something that's very controversial. Because that source has never done anything for us. If that source did anything for us, Nicholas, why
I
is
would,
it that both of us are praying? The slave master and the slave is praying to the same so-called God. And so whose prayer does God hear? And we
yeah,
still enslaved.
yeah. Everybody praying for a new house.
Yeah.
Not a lot of new houses.
So no, that it didn't happen. And we have been convinced that you didn't pray hard enough. You don't have enough faith. That's why you remain enslaved because you don't have enough faith. Who in the world would not have enough too little faith to get out of slavery if that's all it took.
Yeah.
But the church told us that this is the God. And the church didn't realize that the very people who were lynching us gave us the God of lynching.
And religion is I'm sure we've spoken about this at some point before, but religion is the final gatekeeper that stops Black people from breaking out of that mentality.
Yes.
And Clarence Thomas is the specific example of what I was thinking of. Just as an example, you can rise to the top in the system created by that mindset, and you'll never break out of it because religion will be the last thing that stops you. And Clarence Thomas's religious wife is the one doing it. Now, he, of course, believed that stuff himself too, but as a sort of metaphor for how this system works, she's the one keeping him fed with the illusion. And
So
it
you
works that
saying
same way.
so you're saying that he actually submitted to femininity.
In a way.
Yeah. And of course we're saying it comically, but it's real. It's
Yeah.
real.
hmm
Uh, I would I would ask if 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 God I would ask you to ask yourself, when is it that the God at the church did something for you, brought you to a place where you were delivered? It was you. It was not the God of the church. It was you. The God of the church kept you or keeps you in bondage. It keeps you in bondage to men. Because if you're a female and you have a license to preach, you can't go any further than the men in that denomination allow you to go. Is that not the reality? Is that not the reality? That's the reality of it. You can't
Yes.
go any further than it allows you to go. And I reiterate, ask yourself, why would the people who enslave you give you something that's going to be beneficial to you, and they gave us Christianity? I'm done. I'm no, I'm not going to say. I'm sorry. We just had a discussion. That's all. Any questions or comments about that? Were you finished, Nick?
Yes, for now.
Yeah. Okay.
I wanted to go back to the comment you made about you don't see marriage the same way. Uh, I was trying to think of one thing that we have been uh, exposed to in this country that was not influenced, that was not given to us by the European. How we see God, how we see marriage, how we relate to each other, how we are no longer the communities that we were, how education has changed. All of this to me comes to full circle because we're understanding now. Well, I want to say use the word understanding. We're experiencing now what masculinity was intended to look like, what femininity was intended to look like, and how they work together. And that starts the creation process. That starts it. It is not how I want marriage to look or how I want this to look or that to look. All I need to do is to be what I am designed to be. And the creation process starts. So that to me is where we are. And I think again, that's I think I said at one time why we keep going back to Genesis, because we are not only creators, we are the creation. And it is up to us, and that is where we are.
And that's real, Ron. I just my doing my meditations, I ask for the words to speak that will cause humanity, or at the very least, to call religious people to begin to raise legitimate questions about what they're being taught to believe and what they hold on to in regards to heaven and hell and the concept of God and Jesus. I want. Why do I say that? Because I do believe that there is going to be a convergence of macro and micro, and that convergence is space and time. I believe that. And the words that we speak are in the macro. And the desire is for the energy that we are putting in the macro to at some point collide with the micro. And when it does that on a broad basis, that is when the inquisitiveness will begin on a larger scale, because there are people who are rejecting Christianity, and I'm talking about our people are rejecting Christianity, but they're not embracing anything except history.
Yeah.
And history does nothing. John Henry Clark says it's okay to be black and beautiful. Just be black and beautiful now. Now that you are, do something else. Start move beyond that. So you say that Christianity has done nothing. It hasn't. You say that Christianity is a religion of enslavement, and it is. So now that you've said that, and now you say that, now you look at your history, and you embrace that history. Whether you embracing the history of spirituality or the history that has been given to us about Jesus, being African in nature. It doesn't matter who the history of it does not matter. History will not deliver you from bondage. It won't. History tells you who you are. And when you embrace who you are, it can tell you how to become or how to bring back the memory of who you were created to be. But history, you knowing history in itself changes nothing except your intellect, maybe. But nothing else. It does not change your trajectory in terms of deliverance. Because in reality, AI been around since the 80s. They just did not have the technology to put it into action as they do now. And right now, it doesn't matter what electronic device you use, every bit of it is going through a data center. All of it is going through a data center. And just like Verizon can send you a bill because of the signal that your phone gets, you get your bill. All the signals of your electronic equipment is going into your data center, and you have a database there that they are looking at. And 10 years ago, us talking about AI the way we are talking about this, the collider now, 10 years ago, the same skepticism that people are listening about the collider, that's the same skepticism people would have had 10 years ago when we talk about AI. Because no one could fathom how it was possible to house data on everybody on Earth and to control the mindset. And the mindset, what just like you on your phone and you're talking about something, and now you start getting ads based on what you were discussing. That's exactly how AI controls our mindset. That's exactly how AI manipulates our attitude, our emotions, and coupled with the collider, we had to be on the scene to do something. If not us, someone had to. Otherwise, between the AI and the collider, we would be in a world of trouble. But thanks be to the desire, the questions that we raised, and the desire to commit to humanity above everything else, we have come to an understanding where we embrace the divinity of ourselves, and we understand that they had to build a collider 17 miles long, or a circle rather, and hundreds of meters deep in the ground. They had to build that in order to try to reproduce us.
Hmm.
Think about that.
Yeah.
One person, one of us, they built that collider is supposed to replace us. AI is being constructed to have memory. We have a Akashic memory. We have a Akashic consciousness, and AI has the consciousness that Europeans desire us to have, and the collider is to change our frequency so that we will live at a lower frequency. When we are able to maintain our frequency and absolutely nothing can change it, yet they I want you to think about that. You take one of us and you look at one person, one of us, and they went through all the trouble for AI and for the collider, spent all that money, and do you think that they spent that money not knowing what it was going to do? They knew what their intentions were. They knew. And if they could not bring it to fruition, there would have been no need for us to come to an understanding of who we are. There had to be someone to stand in the gap. Otherwise, the whole earth would be subjected to that mindset of the Neanderthal. Think about that. All that construction, that money to replicate one person of Babylonian descent. That is wild. And we on this call, this Zoom, had the energy to shut CERN down, of the collider, to shut it down. We have the energy to do that.
Mhm.
And guess what? We're doing it. And I always go back to the same thing. It's for one man. If it for one, which you save the city. We are doing it. And we are not just one entity. We're not just one person, rather. We are one entity, Elohim, one yet many. That's who we are.
Pastor, I have a question.
Yes.
Grand Rising family. So language is frequency, and I'm asking if I know we are changing the narrative, and are we changing? Remember how God said that one of the gods said that they had to change the language, confuse the language, or something like that. I'm not a Bible quoter, but scripture quoter, but
Yep.
how the language was.
Yeah. Tower of
Are
Babel.
we changing? I'm sorry.
It was the Tower of Babel, baby.
Yeah, that. And how the language was confused. And I'm looking at that as frequency. We're changing the frequency, which I believe is language, all in one, working in tandem. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I know you will. But is that not what we're doing? I can't put it in words what I see.
I think I see what you see. We are changing the frequency with the language, yes. But when it says the language was confused, it was confused. It wasn't that one was speaking Spanish and another was speaking French. It was confused. The confusion of the language, the confusion of it was religion. Religion is what confused the language. And now the language is being spoken the way it should have been from the beginning. And that is being spoken in order to elevate the Babylonian to the space that it's supposed to occupy for the benefit of humanity. Now, the worst language on earth, the English language is the evil language. It is the language of destruction. If you don't speak right, you bring detriment to yourself, and you disbelieve who you are, and we call it having low self-esteem. This is a dangerous language, and yes, we are changing the frequency of the English language. When you change the frequency of the language, you change those who speak the language, who think in that language. When you change the language, you also change the response to other people. It is no coincidence that the English language is the primary language all over the world for trade and for interactions in business. In these places, and business is all about greed. Everywhere greed exists, English is spoken. And we are changing the frequency of English itself. Instead of English saying, I hate you, we are talking about love. Because hate causes the crystals, the water in our body to produce crystals that are antithetical to who we are when the water is crystallized. And if you read the book about the Japanese who spoke to water and took pictures of it on the microscope, you'll understand what I'm saying. So the question that you raised open up another area of understanding. And the area of understanding is, why is it that we are speaking the language of English and we are the foundation of Black people in America? Why is it that we are the ones who are the tip of the spear? That's why we had to be here, to speak the language. Because if I create with words, abracadabra, if I create with words, I can not only create those things which are beneficial, I can also create those things that are not beneficial. And the things that are not beneficial to whom? The things that are not beneficial to humanity. When we talk about, when we hear people talking about, I'm a capitalist, you're automatically saying, I'm a slaveholder. Or my whole mindset is antithetical to the existence of humanity. My desire is to control humanity. If you are a capitalist, that's who you are. So we changed the mindset. And the system of capitalism was brought into existence because of slavery. It was not anywhere on earth until slavery. So we in this country who were enslaved, from us, that system came in, because of us rather, that system came into existence. So now we are changing that language. So people, what's happening now? Everyone who is talking about changing the system are being called communists now. When instead of calling them progressive, they are calling them communists now, because communism is a key word that triggers people to stand against whoever is being labeled a communist. However, now what we are seeing is that even though you're labeling people as a communist, they are still being chosen because the language is being changed. The language is being purified. The language is being dominated by divinity. That's where the difference lies. And does that help, Evelyn?
Yes, sir, it does. And they said that the English language is spells. That's why, just like you say, we have to watch what we say, even what we write. You have to watch, be mindful of what you're writing. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And ChatGPT and a certain amount of all these AI algorithms are referred to as what? Large language models, or LLMs. And I believe, every generation in the earth has its Tower of Babel. And AI data centers are one of those, an example of that same energy. It is a sort of monument to the domination of materialism. And then that domination is held in place by the manipulation of language, which is, as we've been speaking about it, both literally, metaphorically, spiritually, it is manipulating what you think is real, what you think is possible. And these are the actual purposes of these data centers. Like the little stupid little ChatGPT one we have on our phones or whatever, that's just the way they introduce it.
Yeah.
The purpose of it is the domination and control. And they will, and already sort of have, begin influencing the nature of what you are even able to receive in terms of the answers you get. So that conceptualization of what is real, all that stuff is stays within the boundaries they set and does not go out of it.
Right. And
the other part of this is, if you've heard in the news, the idea that the United States military is going to be merged with the Israeli military in terms of intelligence, and sharing resources and stuff. I'm not understating this by saying that is Illuminati endgame. That is that's the real. Oh, you thought it was a conspiracy? No, that's the real world domination. Plans being put out in the open.
with Israel dominating the world.
Correct.
Yes.
The basically just white people who also get to say they are victims. That's a dangerous combination.
And when I read that, I was like, what the hell? And
Yeah,
then I catch myself and remind them who we are. Come on, man, y'all dealing with this.
yeah.
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 But that is what that is for.
Nicholas, I'm glad you brought that up, because we cannot move forward on this journey if we don't change our language. And when I say we, I'm talking about we as a whole as well as individually. As long as we say, I'm struggling with understanding, you will struggle with understanding. As long as you say, I don't understand, you will not understand. My desire is to understand. Whatever your desire is, whatever comes out of your mouth, that's your future. Whatever I am, we've talked about it 1,000 times. Whatever you put after I am, that's who you are, that's your future. And we have to, let me put it this way. Some of you may get upset with me, But what I'm asking you to do is correct me when I speak like that. Do a Barbara Jean on me. Correct me. You're not sorry. Correct me because I'm gonna correct you. If we are not responsible for each other, then how are we going to be responsible? If we're not responsible to each other and for each other, how are we going to be responsible for humanity? Because if our language doesn't change, then the language of humanity doesn't change. Am I right?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
So be cognizant of that. And what you probably are going to hear from here on out, a lot of discussion about changing the language, because the language changes the thinking, and the thinking changes the mindset of the people. I'm done for the day. A lot has been said, but I'm looking forward already till tomorrow. Ron,
Yes, sir.
are there any other questions concerning what we've been talking about? Because you opened it up with your vision of what you saw in that video and the conversation we had last night. So
Good.
good.
Yeah.
Well, tomorrow at 11 o'clock, I will meet you in the same place we're in right now.
Yes, sir.
Until tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good day, everybody.
All right.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Talk to you
Bye.
tomorrow.